A sneak peek at what's coming up next.
So let's say you're feeling a certain way, or you have a very intense feeling, which can happen with people with autism or ADHD in particular. You're not able to control yourself and you just have an outburst, or you get mad at somebody, or you yell, or whatever your outburst is. So other people might see that it's inappropriate.
I have to give grace and forgiveness to myself, and also remind myself that I'm also going to be able to feel love, joy, intimacy, compassion as strongly.
We agree as a society, most people feel like we should be equal and be able to treat each other in similar ways regardless of sex and all that. But the way that we actually behave doesn't match up to that. And I think it takes a long time for society to catch up to where the ideals are.
But cognitive flexibility. One of the reasons why I want to point this out is because a lot of folks on the social medias there like to talk about our sense of justice. Okay? That autistic people have a strong sense of justice. Yes, it can also be part of cognitive inflexibility. One way you can actually help yourself and get better at executive functioning, or at least that aspect of it, actually all aspects of it, is go do a play. Whether you are an actor or not, a lot of the deficits that come with executive functioning issues, you can help yourself with by doing a play. And if you think I'm wrong, prove me wrong. Go do a play.
Get ready for peak autism infotainment. Thrilling topics, amazing guests, great laughs, and autism.
On the Spectrum, an autistic podcast.
Welcome to another lovely episode of On the Spectrum. As always, I am your host, Stephen Norton, and this is...
Hello, I'm Nick.
Wow, that was bad. Excuse me. And I am
Do you want to do a take two on that bitch?
It's okay.
Yeah, okay then. I figure I'd be nice and throw out that option. So, as always, I always try to say at the beginning of most episodes, at least, me and Steve do not presume to be experts of anything in life except for our own lived experience on the spectrum. We are both late diagnosed autists, and we like to talk, so we made a podcast.
Sure.
Oh, please follow, like, subscribe, tell your brothers and your sisters all about On the Spectrum podcast. I don't know why I'm promoting right now, but I am.
This is a Russian psyop.
Oh, we would make the worst spies ever.
The Russians are trying to make everyone think they're autistic.
Yeah, they're not doing a good job by having us talk.
I get a check every week from Putin himself.
Yeah, really? Yeah. Signed your loving dictator, Putin.
Yeah. My little Borchki bear.
Yeah. We would make the worst spies ever. Do you remember the Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd movie, Spies Like Us?
No.
Okay, somebody, if you're listening to this episode, please tell me you remember the movie Spies Like Us. Dan Aykroyd, Dan Aykroyd and Chevy Chase. It was a really funny movie. It's about these two guys who should not be spies for the U.S. government, and they end up becoming spies for the U.S. government, and it's fucking weird, and there's a Russian connection in there because it was done in the 80s during the Cold War. It was a good movie. I thought it was funny.
The Cold War never ended.
Yeah. Actually, there's a joke in that movie that I still use to this day, especially when I was working mental health and I would meet people who are doctors. Doctor. I still use that joke to this day, and nobody understands why in the fuck I'm doing it, and they think I'm fucking weird for it, but I'm just doing that joke. Yeah.
This is a Russian psyop.
Yeah.
You are being brainwashed.
Are you trying to do like subliminal messaging?
If green, press 1. If you hear blue, press 2.
If you hear blue,
press 2.
2.
Patrick Stewart is the greatest actor of any generation.
Why is that not like that's true? He's an amazing
Lemonheads
actor.
are not actually candy.
How dare you, sir?
They are toxic poison.
That's what RFK would say.
Red number 40 is controlling your brain.
Only if it could.
MK Ultra never ended.
Oh my good God. Really? Like, okay. Okay. So we were going to talk about something totally different today, but apparently we're going to talk about Russian spying.
MK Ultra.
That was the government program, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The CIA was
that's it.
using hallucinogenics and stuff to try to mind control people.
Yeah, that's all right. You know,
Giving people LSD, see if they could control their thoughts.
yeah, men who stare at goats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm saying it never ended.
That's a
They just
movie name.
started using it as food additives so they control the population.
Oh, good.
Yeah, they
Good,
just,
good.
those food colored dyes and stuff they use. It's actually
Well, somebody needs to control the
Brain control.
population. People are fucking out of control.
mind
man.
controlling chemicals. So speaking of mind controlling, so today's topic is supposed to be executive function or executive dysfunction.
We're going to talk about executive functioning in general, and obviously being autists, that it is said very often that we have executive dysfunction or we have issues with executive functioning. So when it comes to this topic, I do kind of I wanted to say this up front to anybody, that a lot of folks on social media want to talk about how we have executive function issues, and they talk about it in a way of like, there's no way you can do anything about it. That's just the way it is. We have a problem with the organization. Oh, we can't do anything about it. And that's not true. Executive function, yes, it's derived in a part of the brain, prefrontal cortex, but we can do something about it to get ourselves better at some of the things that executive function affects in our daily life. There are a lot of things we can do about it. Some things are as simple as not comparing yourself to others. Because one of the things I see on social media when people are talking about executive function, they talk about how they're not going to be as good as, or we can't do things the way other people can. Don't compare yourself to other people. The only person, and this is a cliche phrase, but it's something I kind of live by. Don't compare yourself to others. Only compare yourself to you of yesterday, okay, or you of the day before. Everything when it comes to executive functioning, there are things you can do about it. There are ways you can train yourself. There are ways that you can affect your abilities day to day. So it's not a definitive that if you're autistic, you will have executive function problems. It's a matter of how much it affects you and what you're doing about it. Okay. So like to give an example, executive functioning can affect your memory. Okay. Short-term memory, your ability to focus on things like that. But there are ways that we, as people who have a lesser executive function ability, I guess, if I can word it that way, there are ways we can do stuff around us to help ourselves. We can plan a routine. We can set a schedule. We can have goals. We can have reminders on our phones. We can have a support network around us that helps us focus on what it is we need to do, remind us to do things. We can do sticky notes on our mirrors in our bathroom to tell us when to do certain things. So there's a lot of things we can actually do to help ourselves with this stuff. I don't want anybody to hear what we're saying and or listen to other people on social media and think, oh my God, they're fucked. You're worse off than other people. Yes, we have an executive function deficit only compared to other people. But if we're only comparing to ourselves, we can do something about it. It's a skill. It's a skill that we can improve on. So I figure I'll just kind of say that up front. I think I said it more eloquently before we were recording, but I just really want to make sure that the point is out there is like same thing with like RSD and PDA, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, and pathological demand avoidance. When it comes to both of those, even if you have a PDA profile or an RSD profile or however people want to word that, even if you have that, that does not mean that you can't get better with dealing with rejection. It doesn't mean that you can't get better at managing the demands of your day, whether the demands are from you or from other people. It doesn't mean you can't. It just means it's going to be harder for you than somebody else.
But what if I want to be infantilized and always be a permanent victim?
Well, that's a whole nother fucking issue right there. And maybe we might at some point in the future do an episode all about victimization or more specifically victim mentality or something to that effect. People who lean on being a victim. And yes, there are some people who, fucking function that way. And actually, total side note, I actually saw a video the other day where somebody said there is no such thing as a victim mentality. You're either a victim of something or you're not. And like, fuck that. Like some people, like they get attention from it. And I'm not saying a lot of people, and I'm not saying everybody. I'm just saying some people.
I don't think it's necessarily about getting attention, but it's a way to obfuscate responsibility. So it's like, instead of actually trying to do anything to better my situation, I can just use this as an excuse or a crutch.
So I don't necessarily always...
It doesn't mean that there's no validity to the difficulties that you face. It just means that instead of working with what you can do, you just say, well, there's nothing I can do about it because it's just my situation, or I'm a victim. So
I don't want to say it. I mean, I know some people use it as a way to obfuscate responsibility, but I don't think most people do. I think when people lean on that victim mentality, I think it's because they feel hopeless. And so they just kind of say, well, this is the way I feel, so that must be the truth. When the reality is we've all had moments where we felt hopeless. And sometimes we give up on something because we felt hopeless, and we have a lot of reasons why we feel that way. A lot of it has to do with, how we were treated. A lot of it has to do with our conception and our self-worth. A lot of it has to do with a bunch of things, but that's a future episode. I really don't want to get into that much further.
No, it sounds, I just was,
but it does,
I was joking.
It does also tie into this too.
I was being sarcastic.
Yeah, but it does tie into this. I mean, it does tie into executive function.
Well, what I was thinking about is the part of it where people, if people will do certain things or have certain behaviors that other people will find annoying or irritating, or they might think you're an asshole.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that's pointed to for executive dysfunction is having outbursts or emotional outbursts.
Yeah.
So not being able to regulate your emotions.
Yeah, emotional dysregulation.
So let's say you're feeling a certain way, or you have a very intense feeling, which can happen with people with autism or ADHD in particular. So you're having a very intense, strong emotion. Maybe that emotion is a little bit blown out of proportion as compared to how other people might feel about something.
Right.
It's very intense. And you're not able to control yourself, and you just have an outburst, or you get mad at somebody, or you yell, or whatever your outburst is. So other people might see that it's inappropriate. And so you could say, well, there's nothing I can do about it because it's just how I am, and leaning on it as an excuse for it. And I wouldn't say that having it as an excuse doesn't mean that it's not a valid reason. But at the same time, there are things, like you were saying before, you can do to try to improve some of that stuff, like because you're also negatively impacting other people with your outbursts. But at the same time, other people should be somewhat understanding that there are people who have issues with that. And so if somebody has an outburst, people need to be a little bit more patient with other people, and understand that sometimes if somebody has an emotional outburst, that it might be something that's hard for them to control. Not that it's completely beyond their control, but it might be something that's the whole point of executive dysfunction, is that they have trouble controlling certain things. Yeah.
So it's, I hate to say it this way, but it's probably the most succinct way I can say it. I mean, somebody smarter than me could probably say it better, but it's a lack of an ability. And that doesn't mean you have no ability to control it. It just means a lack of, compared to others. But I'll say this much: when it comes to like appropriate amount of emotional give at a certain moment, or being appropriate in certain moments when it comes to our emotional expression, I really think that you as a human being, if you're the one who has those greater emotional expressions than other people.
I am a surgeon.
Yep. It's up to you to decide how much or how little of an emotional expression you're going to give, right? Don't let other people dictate how you express yourself. So like for myself, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, and there's been episodes that we've done where I seemed rather heated or angry or passionate or energetic, if you will. But that's my expression of it, right? And so even when people tell me you're blowing that out of proportion, well, to me, I'm not blowing it out of proportion. But instead of telling somebody that they're being too emotional about it, how about instead identify what it is that they're getting emotional about, and let's let people express their way. Now, if somebody gets angry and starts throwing shit across a room, that's a bit different, because now they're making choices about their emotional expression that are detrimental to somebody else. But like if the tone of my voice when I'm speaking agitate somebody. That's not on me at that point. If I'm not directly attacking somebody with my words or taking it out on them in that way, then nobody can tell me that I'm inappropriate with my expression, because there's not necessarily an appropriate way to express your emotions. I know somebody might say, yes, there is. Well, no, that's your version of what that means, right? But why don't we just deal with the situation that has brought that about? But executive function is something that helps regulate that. Like when talking about emotions, impulse control is another thing that executive function kind of helps people control. Impulse. When you're highly emotional, and this goes for all human beings, when they're highly emotional, they're way more impulsive, right? Because their emotional mind overrides their intellectual mind or their rational mind. And so now they make choices that are not necessarily the best possible. So we have to learn how to mitigate that somewhat or manage it. And so, but who gets to decide how much managing of our impulsivity and what truly is impulsive and what is you just being you? That's why I put it on the person to decide for themselves how much to manage it, what's appropriate for them, and also what to do about it. Like there have been times where you've said to me that there are things I can do about certain ways I feel about certain things or the perception other people have. But I have to decide for myself, am I okay with some people thinking I'm an asshole and rejecting me, so I'm okay with me? Or do I just want to try to make everybody happy? And I chose a long time ago not to try to make everybody happy. So I have to accept that.
Isn't there some middle ground between that, though?
There can be. There can be, and it depends on the person.
Way you just phrased it, you made it sound like I either have to make everyone happy or I have to just be myself.
No, there's a lot of middle ground to that, but you've got to figure out for yourself. You've got to figure out your own abilities. You've got to figure out your own placement in that and how much you're willing to do. I mean, I'll say this much. I actually started having this conversation with one of my actors in the play, and we were getting a beer after the fact. We weren't doing this during rehearsal, but we were kind of talking about this a little bit because when he met me, he kind of looked at me as just being kind of a cold dick to people. And the more he's gotten to know me, though, the more he's liked me as a person and thought none of that anymore about me. He doesn't think I'm cold. He doesn't think I'm callous. He doesn't think I'm a dick. He was like, you have a lot of strong opinions, but more importantly, you have a lot of emotion in you, and you like when you feel something, you feel it very, very strongly. And he said, and I can respect that a great deal because you're more than willing to express it all the time. But he didn't feel that way at all about me to begin with.
It's been that way ever since your first period, right?
Pretty much. And well, that's why I prefer tampons opposed to pads because, easier to get rid of.
Can't make a misogynistic joke. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Why not? People are going to look at us both being white males and automatically assume we are anyway.
No, it's just a coincidence. It has nothing to do with me being white and male.
That is actually true. He's probably just saying it because he was just making a joke. Anyway, so
no, I was saying that it's a coincidence that I'm also a misogynist. That was the joke.
Yeah. So the same traits that this person was complimenting me on and saying that are good qualities about me, some people actually think are bad qualities about me because they can't necessarily handle, or they personally can't deal with how intense I express myself. But that's on them, right? Like I don't directly attack anybody with my anger or my frustration. Not anymore. I've gotten much better, especially over the last 2 years. The more I've come to terms with some things about me. And actually, the more we both kind of have come to a better middle ground about each other and given each other grace. So in that, like when it comes to dealing with executive functioning stuff, like if you're somebody who's bad with memory, remembering shit, and you're constantly forgetting shit, and you're constantly beating yourself up because you're forgetting to do basic things or what's considered basic stuff that everybody else seems to figure out. If you're having an issue with that, set reminders on your phone, put up a Post-it note, but this is shit you've been told 1,000 times. Here's the part that I don't hear people talk about a lot. Give yourself grace and forgiveness for those things. When it comes to my impulsivity, when I get emotionally wrapped up and I get real impulsive and I say stupid shit, I have to give myself grace and forgiveness because I am who I am. And I'm still a work in progress. I'm still working on myself. I'm still trying to learn how to manage or live with my emotions a lot better. But there's also a part of me that doesn't want to control it any more than I already have, because I don't want to lose my joy. And something I know about when it comes to managing emotions, when we stifle one, we stifle all. And I can say that from being a former counselor, being in therapy myself, as well as the assortment of people that I've talked to who have gone through therapy. The negative emotions, as strongly as we felt the negative emotions, is as strongly as we felt positive emotions. And when they learned to control the negative ones, they couldn't quite get as much happiness, as much joy, as much love as they did before. Or at least they don't feel it the same way. And I would say that that's kind of the give and take you got to have. I mean, for myself, like when I get super angry, I have to give grace and forgiveness to myself, and also remind myself that I'm also going to be able to feel love, joy, intimacy, compassion as strongly. And so I take the good with the bad, if you will.
I think
that was a really long-winded explanation. Holy shit. Hopefully I said
apologize.
something in there that made sense to this conversation.
I've had like a bad tickle in my throat, so I apologize.
It's great. Other people cough too.
Yeah. Do you think that part of it seems like in our society, and probably other societies as well, other cultures, that there are certain negative emotions which are more acceptable for people to express than others.
Yeah.
So anger, for instance, is almost universally despised, whereas people tend to have more understanding, more compassion when somebody's upset or if they're crying versus expressing anger, even though both are normal human emotions. But people have a hard time dealing with someone who's angry, and they may perceive their them expressing those feelings as violent or threatening versus somebody who's upset or crying.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's difficult for men in particular is that a lot of the ways that men express their feelings is through more aggressive emotion and aggressive behavior, because a lot of men are taught, or when they're boys and when we're young men, we're like, if we do try to show emotion in a way that's perceived to be more feminine, such as crying, it's kind of looked down upon or made fun of or shunned, or it's told it's not appropriate.
Right. Well, I mean, you're talking about the socialization of men and women in that regard, and you're absolutely right.
I'm just saying in your example, you were talking about being angry, and I'm just saying, do you think that plays a role in it? Is it, what for men in particular that may be more difficult?
Yes.
Sometimes for autistic people who are expressing anger because of that emotional regulation issue that a lot of us have, especially when a lot of the ways that certain people express their feelings comes out in a more aggressive way, even if it's not threatening at all. It may sound more aggressive if it's expressed through anger rather than expressed through tears. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Well, yes, absolutely. I will say too that like some of us who are on the low support need side of things, due to an assortment of factors throughout our upbringings, a lot of us are it's harder for us to express emotions. And sometimes we deny our own emotions a lot, and we deny how we feel a lot. And so because we're not exploring our own feelings and letting ourselves feel our feelings, it's harder to know how to manage them. It's harder to regulate them, if you will. And also with that, what I always hear people talk about emotional regulation only in the sense of like when people have outbursts or when people have big emotional moments. Emotional regulation or emotional dysregulation can also be the exact opposite of that too. It can also be not feeling enough. It can also be you denying, packing it away, pushing it away, and being more apathetic or callous, if you will.
Even towards positive feelings.
Yes, like for everything.
Or small daily things, like maybe something that makes you a little bit happy or something that makes you feel a certain way, but maybe in a small amount, but you're not showing any or not expressing that at all.
And if you're not exploring your emotions, and if you're not allowing yourself to feel them, if you're not going through the motions with them, it's actually much harder to handle them. Okay. To give an example, I was just talking to somebody, I was messaging back and forth with somebody about anxiety, because I put out that clip recently about anxiety. And this person said, you got to make sure you specify between regular anxiety and an anxiety disorder. One of the things that I will say about that is anxiety disorders are drastically different than just regular anxiety, if you will. But the thing that's common amongst them is people have tendency to try to avoid anxiety so much so that it becomes a drastic problem. And if you want to know more about what I'm talking about, it's called the cycle of anxiety and cycle of depression. Basically, it's a way you can look at it. It's a circle. And at the very top is you have a thing that invokes anxiety or depression, okay, a trigger event, if you will. And then the next step is you do something to avoid it. And then the next step is it gets stronger. And then the next step is you're not dealing with it. And then the next step is something else happens to cause anxiety or depression, and then you try to avoid it. Basically, what you're doing is you're not managing your anxiety whatsoever. And I don't mean using coping skills. I mean, you're not even letting yourself feel it. So it just builds and builds and builds and builds. So every single time an emotion, an anxiety moment happens, it's more intense than it could have been if you had just managed or dealt with your emotions
or hit the pen
previously. Huh?
I'm just kidding.
Oh,
hit the pen. The weed. Never mind.
Oh. And actually, people who say my anxiety is much better when I smoke in public. Yeah, you're not really dealing with anxiety at that point. And I'm not saying for everybody, because, if it works for you. It's just there was a gentleman I met, I don't know, a few months back who said, I can't go in public unless I smoke because I have too much anxiety. And I said, other than smoking, what else do you do? And he goes, nothing. I don't do shit with it because you can't stop anxiety. And I didn't go further in the conversation because he said you can't stop anxiety. His whole premise was, I need to stop it from happening. No, you need anxiety. You need to have anxiety. You need to have depression at moments. Now, if you have an anxiety disorder, or you have major depressive disorder, or you're bipolar because you have episodes that are depression, there is a point where it's too much anxiety or too much depression. And I get that. That's what medication is for. Plus, there's also therapies.
Should all just be like skills. Data from Star Trek.
Yeah. Some people would say. My point about it is there are things you can do about it. And one of the things you can do about it is by experiencing your fucking emotion. Not going, oh my God, it's a 9 out of 10. Fuck, I run. But actually dealing with it.
Yeah, but I would say...
Oh, and dealing with it doesn't mean making it go away.
Feeling it might also mean exploring it.
Yes.
So if you're feeling really anxious or feeling depressed, and then thinking about the things that are making you feel depressed, and you can express it. Like for me, I used to write. So if I was feeling really depressed, I would sit down and I don't necessarily know all of the reasons why I'm feeling depressed right now, but let me just write out, express myself through art or some other means, and that helps me process the emotion. Absolutely.
Have a conversation with somebody about it.
And then like whatever is making me feel that way, maybe some of it comes out in whatever I wrote.
Right.
If I write a poem or something, maybe I write a poem about a tree, but there's elements that are maybe depressing about whatever this tree is I'm writing about. And those elements of depression touch on whatever's making me feel bad.
Right. And it's a great way to do it. It is absolutely a great way to do it. I choose to talk about it. So I find people, whether they're friends or even just random strangers, and I'll just talk about the way I'm feeling. Right. And it's their choice to listen or not, but I just keep talking about it. Sometimes I just talk in my car. I've had conversations with you in my car and you weren't even there, because that's the way I choose to express myself. So I'm able to explore the way I feel. I'm able to talk myself through it.
I want to mention before that. Excuse me.
Good God.
I still got the tickle. What I mentioned before about expressing anger and negative emotions and all that, I want to clarify that I wasn't saying that that women don't also express that as well. Just saying that it's more common for men to express their emotions in an aggressive or way that can be perceived as angry or violent.
Yeah. Well,
but there are plenty of women, even especially autistic women, who might have an aggressive or angry outburst as well. So I just wanted to clarify that. I would just specify men just because of the socialization aspect of it, where like a lot of boys are like kind of, even if they're not told that they shouldn't cry, it's kind of like...
Yeah, it's the idea is still pushed on a societal level.
Yeah, but it's also the way that people react to a boy crying versus a girl crying and stuff like that. Even if it's not verbally enforced, it's also the way that the people's actions help to enforce those gender roles and stuff like that.
I mean, we're still conditioning people, even if we don't directly say boys shouldn't cry. When we say buck up to a boy and we say to girls it's okay, like you're still reinforcing the idea that boys shouldn't cry.
Or just the way that people respond.
Yeah.
Let's say, you know, if it's, you know, say my sister is crying or something and people run over and try to comfort her right away versus a boy crying where they're just like, yep.
Yeah. Actually, there was
or tell them not to cry. Just say, oh, it's okay. Don't cry.
Yeah. There was somebody on TikTok a couple of years ago who it was on one of the social medias. Anyway, a couple of years ago who was doing pseudo, social experiments. And they had a woman sitting on, well, a young woman, but, you know, at least young adult. But she was sitting on a park bench and she was sitting there acting upset and essentially crying, you know, not quite 100% crying, but, you know, sad. And most people who walked by asked her if she was okay. And then they had a young man roughly looking relatively close to the same age. And very few people asked him if he was okay.
Yeah.
And the only person who in the short clip, the only person who asked if that person was okay was a grandmother. Yeah. Was this older woman. No men asked him.
I saw one, I think it was...
No young women asked him.
I saw it was one clip like that, but it was on What Would You Do? That NBC thing.
Oh, really?
I don't know if those are staged or if they're real. But they did one, the same thing. They had it was in a store.
Yep.
And they had this girl crying and a bunch of people asked if she was okay. And then they did one where it was a young guy.
Yeah.
And people not only ignored him, but somebody actually called security on him because they thought something was wrong with him. They said he was creepy because he was a guy crying, so they thought something was wrong with him or he was weird.
Yeah. So to me, those are actually some of the biggest examples that sexism still exists. Like people like to point out like major overt fucking sexist things. To me, that's some of the biggest examples of sexist because we're not universally helping people and we're not universally treating people the same way. And I think it's horrible. Like, if you're willing to stop if a young woman is crying, you should also be willing to stop and ask if the young man is okay too.
Here's what a lot of...
Don't automatically assume a motherfucker has mental problems just because it's a guy crying.
Here's what a lot of... And this is because we're both dudes talking about this.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking.
Yeah. Wait, what is relatively speaking about both of us being guys?
I'm just saying we're both biological males.
Yeah. Plus, we both identify as being men. What the fuck?
A lot of young women would say that because they perceive men to be more of a threat in general, that they'd be more willing to stop and talk to a woman who's crying than a guy because the guy might pose a threat to them.
I get it.
So that's why.
And I understand. I got it. But also more men are going to stop to see if the girl's okay than see if a guy's okay. So probably. You know what I would say? If you are,
but then they would say, well, that's on you men at that point. That's what they would say.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'll say. If you,
but you just want to get in their pants or something.
If you are a woman who will only stop for another woman, okay, then don't stop at all. Don't fucking stop because you actually don't give a fuck about humanity. You actually have little to no compassion for humans. You only give a shit because you represent that person represents you, and so you're doing it out of self-interest. So fuck you. Don't stop. That's what I will ignorantly say in this given moment. This kind of goes to the conversation we were having before we were recording too. I have a severe problem, and it could also be my inflexible thinking, which is part of executive functioning, to tie it into our topic. I have a horrible problem when people do not universally apply ideas. I have a really it stirs up some heat in me like nobody's business when people do not universally apply law, when they don't universally apply social etiquette, when they don't universally apply how to treat other people or compassion or caring or empathy, when they don't universally do it. And I know that's a humanistic thing that we don't universally do it, but it stirs something hateful in me towards people.
I have a theory about this, and I think I've told you about this idea or this theory of mine before. Yeah. I think that we have ideas that that are generally accepted within a society as a whole. Yeah. Whether that's through culture, if that's just through the way we behave in a society in general, or if it's law, right? So the idea that, let's say, that men and women are equal.
Yeah.
that women should have the same rights as men. Like you had the different feminist movements, the suffragette movement, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But it takes a long time for the way that we act as people, and for society and culture to catch up to those ideas.
Yes.
So let's say
Yes.
women get the right to vote, women are able to work, women are supposed to be equal to men, and on like legally speaking and on paper we're pretty much equal, right? But we still don't treat each other as though we're equals in different ways.
Right.
So even though like let's say men and women are supposed to be equal, there's still a lot of gender roles that are enforced. A lot of women still expect men to act a certain way to be like men, or a lot of women, not all, but there's a lot of women who prefer men to pay on the first date and do a lot of traditional things. And there's a lot of women out there who also find men who cry to be extremely unattractive.
Right.
Even though we're supposed to be equal to each other. And the same on the same token, like men also treat women in a lot of the traditional gender role ways as well.
Right.
So we're supposed to be equal, and we agree as a society. Most people feel like we should be equal and be able to treat each other in similar ways, regardless of sex and all that. But the way that we actually behave doesn't match up to that. And I think it takes a long time for society to catch up to where the ideals are. The same thing when it came to like issues of race. Like we're still catching up to the ideals and to the, like as a society, we think that people should be treated the same regardless of their race and et cetera. And we've made, there was the civil rights movement and all these different things we've had.
Yeah.
But the way that people actually treat each other, I think it takes a long time for society to catch up. I think it lags behind, let's say 50, 60 years. So even though men and women are equal on paper, let's say, I think it's still going to take a long time before we would actually treat each other the way that you're describing.
Yes, I agree. And you're right. It does socially take a while. It does take a while. And some of that has to do with a lack of understanding. Because like with executive function stuff, if you have issues with executive function, like when it comes to attention and focus, right, you can be a little time blind. And some people might think you're lazy because of that. It's because we want to attribute negative traits on it. And more specifically, it's because somebody is holding you to their standard of life.
Yeah.
And that to me is a cognitive issue. Not a cognitive issue like it's a fucking brain problem or something to diagnose, but like it's a problem in thinking. Okay. I'm going to hold you to what my standard of life. I'm going to hold you to what I think a responsible person is. Okay. But what is a responsible person? Like people like to talk about how people need to be held accountable. People need to be responsible. But every time I ask somebody what does responsible mean, either they give me a bland, sterile dictionary definition, or they start describing what they feel their standard is for responsible, right? And I don't think there's a real definition anymore because of that.
My standard is the only standard, and that is Standard Oil.
But I like honest to God, like to me, if somebody says being responsible for your personal hygiene is brushing your teeth every day, twice a day, you have to brush your teeth. So what you're saying though is that if a person forgets one day or doesn't brush their teeth at night once, now they're irresponsible. That's what they're saying. And I think everybody needs to, yes, best practice is to brush your teeth twice a day. I fucking know that.
I think it's more if it's a pattern, or I think that most people would say it's more about a pattern if you constantly forget to do those certain things. So let's say, like, I think most people would consider like bare minimum when it comes to hygiene is making sure the key areas of your body that are dirty are washed. You know, as George Carlin used to say, the joke, armpits, asshole, teeth, and armpits.
Yeah, something like that.
Whatever it was, but like you want to make sure your crotch,
right,
your butt, your mouth is clean, all the places that are dirty, hands.
Yeah, and he said that, but like I know people who actually say that they don't like to be around people who don't shower every day because they're just dirty people. And that's not true, actually. And depending on who you are, like showering every single day can actually be worse off for your fucking skin. And considering most soaps we use are not antibacterial and killing germs, they're just like sloughing off the fucking grease on your body and shit, which contains all the bacteria in
detergents.
But like
a lot of the liquid soaps that people put in their skin are like basically detergents.
Yeah, that's it. So I like it bothers me because like at the same token, like there are people who look at somebody who has a wrinkled shirt, right? Or even some wrinkles on the shirt, not even like fully horrible wrinkled. And we'll go, well, that person didn't iron good enough. Well, no, they ironed as good as they wanted to iron. Why in the fuck are you judging that?
Well, if you put your clothes away right away, they don't get wrinkled.
They still get a little bit. Not bad though.
If you hang them up, if you take clothes out of the dryer and you hang them up or fold them after you take them out of the dryer, they shouldn't get all wrinkled.
Yeah, I know. And all of us have absolutely the time to do that.
Put away clothes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with I can't speak for everyone in America and what their home life is like.
I think that
if you forget them because you don't go down right when the dryer stops, dude, like set an alarm for it. Well, some people forget.
You know that putting laundry away, especially let's say you're just putting away your own stuff.
Yeah.
Let's not say you're putting away all your kids' stuff too.
Yeah.
But even if you just put away your own laundry, what does that take? 5 minutes?
Yes.
Maybe.
But here's the thing. If
you mean you don't have 5 minutes in your day to hang up stuff? And you can listen to a podcast while you do it or play some music?
So when I start the dryer and then I have to run out to go pick up one of the kids from an activity or I've got to go grocery shopping and then I completely forget that it's in the dryer by the time I get back.
Okay.
That kind of shit happens.
Maybe it's the timing that you're doing it. Or what you can do is if it's wrinkled, you can put it on for most dryers have a setting to de-wrinkle. Put it on de-wrinkle, then pull it out.
Yeah. So what I'm saying though is, and also to stay on or at least make this make sense to our topic too, time blindness is a thing. Forgetting shit is a thing, right? And not everybody has the lifestyle, the ability to make things all make sense into a wonderful block like that. Not everybody can decide 100% of the time, I've got to block out 2 hours of my day to do my laundry.
I'm saying if your clothes are constantly always wrinkled and looking messy, then
here's my...
there's not going to be every single time you do laundry, it's not going to be something's in the way of me putting it away.
So this is actually where I was going when I brought up the wrinkles is you just said if they're always wrinkly, right?
Right.
Always messy.
That's a pattern.
But you said they're messy. Yeah. And they're not messy though. They're just wrinkled.
Yeah, but I'm saying they look messy.
Because the perception is that if you can't iron your fucking clothes, they're messy. It's not a mess at all.
It makes someone look disheveled. If you show up to work and your pants are wrinkled and your shirt's wrinkled.
Yeah, but that's because we're taught that that's one of those things.
Yeah.
I've known people who didn't iron because they were never taught to iron, so they wouldn't even know how to iron a pair of pants correctly anyway, but they worked like a motherfucker at their job and they were very good at their job.
I like to buy the dress pants that don't wrinkle.
That supposedly don't wrinkle? I have
a pair of dress pants that doesn't wrinkle.
Yeah, I own a shit ton of them, but yet I still manage to wrinkle the fuck out of them. Some of it has to do with my own fucking shit. So getting back to executive functioning, like a lot of what you're talking about is, ideal situations for a lot of things, but it's also a matter of like what we deem priority. And it's
right, but it would be out of character for you if you show up to work all the time and your clothes are normally fine, and then you show up one day and then everything's wrinkled. That's different than if you show up to work every day and your clothes are always wrinkled.
Well, but that's what I mean though. If you're
or if it's like 3 out, you know what I mean? If it's a pattern, like 3 days out of the week, 2 days out of the week.
But this is kind of what I'm getting at is we're also making judgments about the person's character. We're making judgments about the person.
I personally don't care if someone's clothes are wrinkled, but I know that other people perceive it to be.
Yeah. That's why I said we. I meant the grand or generalized we. I didn't mean me and you. But those things can be attributed to things like having a lack of executive function or having a lesser ability of executive function. Some of that can be that people think differently than other people. People have different standards, but yet we're holding them accountable to our
I care more about if your clothes are clean, because if your clothes smell bad, that's
a different issue.
If your clothes, like for me, smell is a big thing. I have a very sensitive sense of smell. So like sometimes I have customers who smell really bad and it's hard for me to deal with them, like working with them because the smell is overwhelming to me. If they have really stinky clothes, or like some people have really bad cigarette coffee breath.
You mean like me?
Yours is not that bad because I can't smell you from 3 feet away. But I have customers who come in that I can smell the distance that I'm sitting from you right now, and I can smell their breath because it's like super nicotine coffee, and it's like, oh shit, like it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd rather you come to work with wrinkled clothes than stinky clothes.
Right.
Because to me, the stink, like BO and all that, that's very hard for me to deal with.
Right.
And to the point where if somebody smells strongly enough, I will actually gag or almost puke. So,
And I would say that if you have a strong reaction to it, that's not 100% on them.
yeah, but I also
That is your own sensitivity.
Well, the problem with that is that if I have to walk away from a customer because they smell so bad and I feel like I'm going to puke, now I have to impose someone else to take care of that customer because I can't help them.
You have to ask a teammate to help out?
Correct.
So you're asking another human being to help you?
Right, which is not always appropriate.
Yes, it is. This is where we're going to differ. This is where we're going to differ a great deal.
I'm saying that in the company that I work with, they don't appreciate that.
So here's my thing with it.
It's like if you start helping somebody, you're supposed to be responsible from beginning to end.
I understand what their standard is, but their standard doesn't make sense to humanity.
But
because if somebody comes in and they're really fucking loud, okay, you know how I have to wear the loop when I go to the bars and shit like that. Loop earplugs, they help you in situations that are far too loud. That's the worst promo I've ever done. Anyway, when I now that I know that about myself, that's something that can like grate on me and irritate the shit out of me, and I'll fucking have one of my loud outbursts. Because of that, I'll wear those. But if I come across somebody who's just talking really stupid loud or has a voice that like, because I know I have the sound sensitivity, I will either A, point out the fact that I'm sensitive to sounds, and if they could bring their volume down in certain situations, but other situations, I just ask Natalie to step in. And she does, because there are situations where she asked me to step in for stuff for her.
yeah, but I'm talking about coworkers, not my partner.
Yeah. But this is one of my issues with work, because people in our community want to talk about getting accommodations at work, but this is a real accommodation. That's a real thing that somebody else can actually help you with.
People are not very understanding when it comes to the smell thing.
People are not understanding that somebody may have differences in planning, organization, working memory, attention and focus, cognitive flexibility, impulse control. You're right. You're right. People lack understanding about differences of people.
With the smell thing, because I don't know very many other people or autistic people who have such an aversion to smell.
Are you serious?
I'm sure there are, but I'm saying like
God,
other people will like basically the kind of mentality is if I bring up like that a smell is bothering me, the reaction I get from most people is basically just like suck it up or stop being a bitch.
Well, because that's everybody's default position when somebody says they have a difference about them.
Stop being a bitch. Suck it up.
Yeah. Well, that's the male response.
Yeah.
And I'm betting money if you were a girl, excuse me for saying it this way, but if you were a girl, everybody would be like, oh, okay, I'll take care of them. But because you're a dude, they tell you to suck it up.
Yeah.
And again, if we're not universally applying something, let's fucking not do it. Like, fucking just be shitty to everybody.
It's also that people don't have a hard time comprehending the fact that certain smells bother me so much.
Well, because we're not teaching people that humans come in differences. We're not teaching people that. And somebody might say, well, you're going to lesser your standards. No, you're not lessening
It's not like
standards.
the smell bothers other people. Like there's certain, let's say there's a customer comes in, let's say it's a homeless guy and he smells really bad. Yeah. Other people, it bothers them, but not to the same degree it bothers me. It's because like to me, it's overwhelming to the point where like I feel like I'm going to vomit.
Right. So then why not somebody help you? And you can also help in other situations.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why not work together?
And I'm not even making a judgment on that person. It's just that like there's a guy who comes in and he doesn't wear shoes. He comes in barefoot all the time, which my manager technically could kick him out for coming in barefoot, but he comes in anyway. Usually smells really bad.
Okay.
He smokes cigars constantly, so he smells like cigar smoke and just like BO and stuff. But because his smell is so overwhelming to me, I don't want to help him.
Right.
It's not because I don't want to help him because he's a homeless guy. It's just that it's hard for me to be near him.
Right. For your own issues.
Right.
Why can't somebody help him then?
Yeah.
Like, it's not hard. And I understand your company has a policy, but that policy also needs to take into account humanity.
Most people are fine. It's just some people who, I'm not saying I deal with this every day, but it's like maybe one customer a week that comes in and I'm like, holy shit.
How have you had so many conversations with me and not had an aversion to my breath at times?
I had a customer who came in who, it was an old man yesterday. Yeah. And he had the worst breath I've ever smelt in my life. It was just like Smelled like nicotine and coffee and like rotten teeth.
Yeah.
And
that I can't believe
But
that's not what you smell out from me. By the way, I want to make sure I'm specifying for anybody listening. I am only saying all of this about my own breath because at one point in my life, I was really bad about brushing my teeth. And it wasn't that long ago until I learned how to brush my teeth more regularly. Like in the extent of all of our relationship of 8 years, I think over the last 12 months.
Yeah, and you smoke and drink a lot of coffee.
And I smoke and drink
But you don't have like you don't have an overwhelming smell to me.
Oh, well, that's good.
Whereas this guy smelled probably how you think that you smell.
Yes, that is probably
how
I think.
he smells.
Ah.
But yeah, it was a bit to deal with. So I was helping him and he kept getting close to me and I was trying to back away a little bit, but not be rude. But it's nothing to do with me judging the person or anything. It's just the smell to me is hard for me to deal with it.
Yep. Actually, years ago, and this is long before I became as compassionate as I am. Yeah, not that most of you would think I was compassionate, but before I got to this point, when I was in my early 20s, I was working at a gas station, and there was a gentleman similar to what you're describing, disenfranchised homeless person. He came in, and I said out loud, I was like, "You really smell," and he goes, "And you're kind of dumb." And I was like, all right, cool. Now we both said something obvious about each other. What's up, man? What can I do for you? And he goes, do you have any coffee you're throwing out? I was like, yeah. He goes, can I have it? I was like, sure. And I gave him the coffee. My boss saw on the camera that I gave him coffee, and he goes, why did you do that? I said, because I was throwing that shit out anyway. I might as well give it to him. And he goes, that's theft. And I was like, fire me. Dude needed coffee. I gave him coffee. We're not hurting because of that. But my point about the interaction was like I pointed it out to him that he smelled. And dude pointed out something about me. He wasn't offended by it because he knew he smelled.
Yeah.
And I know most people are like, oh my God, I'd be so offended if somebody pointed. No, you'd be embarrassed, not offended. You'd cover it up by being offended, but you'd be embarrassed by it. I don't get embarrassed by shit like that. I of course, had impulse control issues when it came to what I said out loud. Mostly I still do. But I actually ended up being buddies with him, and he did end up getting on his feet, which was kind of cool. He ended up getting back on his feet and getting a job in an apartment, and all that kind of stuff. Up until 10 years ago, I was still in contact with the guy, and he was a cool motherfucker. But I didn't let the smell get. Anyway, the point is, I pointed it out to him, and he just kind of had no issue with it. I think people are far more sensitive. I don't know why I'm on this track of thought, but I think people are far more sensitive. We assume or we believe people are more sensitive about some of those things than they really are.
I don't know. Depends on the person.
Yeah, I think that's the social etiquette difference. Anyway, back on point. Cognitive flexibility, which is one of those things that I wanted to talk about. We talked about impulse control a little bit, but I wanted to talk about cognitive flexibility. Well, it's an interesting way of saying it because one of the diagnostic criteria of autism is restrictive or repetitive behaviors, right? Restrictive. And I think about cognitive flexibility, and I don't 100% know if the two actually go together, but that's what I kind of think of when it comes to it. But cognitive flexibility, one of the reasons why I want to point this out is because a lot of folks on the social medias there like to talk about our sense of justice, okay? That autistic people have a strong sense of justice. Yes, it can also be part of cognitive inflexibility. Okay, so if you have executive dysfunction issues, having a cognitive inflexibility can be a thing. Okay, no, it should be this way. No, people have to do something that way. That's part of executive function issues, and so we do have deficits in that. Okay, and cognitive flexibility also has to do with, if I read on this fucking thing. There it is, social interaction right there. When you have executive function deficits, social cues are hard to pick up on. One of the reasons why social cues can be hard to pick up on as an autistic person is because of our cognitive inflexibility. We get real rigid thinking, and that's what that is rigid thinking. And we've done an entire episode about rigidity in our thinking, but that's really what it is, right? Is that cognitive inflexibility. I think I've said the exact same thing 3 times, but the reason why I'm bringing it up, okay, is because a lot of us will see or hear something on a social media thing about autism, and we get it stuck in our fucking head that we all have it, or it's a common trait of autism or whatnot. And in some ways it's not. It's an executive function issue. And one of the ways we can deal with that or learn to soften up with our inflexibility, okay, is by ourselves giving grace to somebody else, as well as understanding somebody else in front of us. Don't assume you know. So for all the people who like to talk about how neurotypicals, they're so weird, they do things that don't benefit them. Why do they have to think like that? That's part of that cognitive inflexibility. You're creating an us-them mentality in yourself, and that becomes a problem because you're also not identifying the fact that you yourself are human. Like, I had a point I was going to, but I'm just going to stop on that. Like, you're forgetting that you're also human and that you do a lot of those same things. You're just not aware of it potentially.
I'm not human. I'm better than.
I know.
I'm the next evolution of mankind.
Yeah. If you're the next fucking
This is a
evolution, then how come you
Russian
can't
psyop.
find a fucking date? God damn it.
This is a Russian psyop.
Yeah.
Green, press 1.
That's something that bothers the shit out of me when those Aspie supremacist bastards talk about how we're the next stage of evolution, that we're better than neurotypicals and all that shit. Then how come your ass can't hold a goddamn job? I know it's everybody else's fault. How come you can't really find a fucking relationship? I know it's everybody else's fault. They don't accept you for the way you are. Did you ever think that maybe you're not the next stage of evolution? That instead you have fucking deficits? Like, there's not a problem with having deficits. Like, why do
It's not
people-
deficits, Nick. It's differences.
I don't give a fuck what you want to call it. It's a goddamn deficit. Like, when people read, I know years ago for low support need, I know it was called something fucking different, but for low support need people, it said a lack of empathy, right? And people love to argue the shit out of it. Well, no, we have empathy. Yeah, a lack of doesn't mean you have none. Okay. But I will say this much. If you talk, excuse me for saying this about you, Steve. If you have a conversation with this motherfucker on a regular basis and you try to talk to him about something personal to you, if he has nothing to say to you, he'll go, okay, and have no fucking response back. Now, think about that from an observer standpoint. It seems like he has a lack of empathy. Does that mean he does have a lack? No. But what it means is, from an observational standpoint, from outside of this motherfucker's head, it will seem like he doesn't give a rat's fuck about you, how you feel, what's happened to you in your life. Steve does actually give a shit, but that's only because I've known him for 8 fucking years. And so on the converse side of that, for me, it will seem like I give a shit about things way more than I really do regularly. So I wouldn't even match that criteria of lack of empathy, but I can tell you that there's a lot of times where I've actually had a lack of fucking empathy on a regular basis. And that doesn't mean no empathy. It means a lack of a lesser amount of empathy. And I know everybody's going to cite a fucking research paper to tell me otherwise. But I'm going to tell you from an observational standpoint, a lot of autistic people, and I'm going to say a lot of autistic people, do seem like they lack empathy. Okay, not none, a lack of. Same thing with emotional expression, right? That was one of the things too. They talked about how we have less of an emotional expression. Okay, that makes sense. I can see that too from an observational standpoint. That doesn't mean they have a lack of an ability to express emotion. It just means it seems like it from an outside perspective. So we need to put that in context, because there are some, like, straight up, I could name some fucking social media accounts and or people in public, that are famous or whatever, or well known, who have a lack of emotional fucking expression. I can name some fuckers on the Love on the Spectrum show that fucking show a lack of fucking empathy and a lack of emotionality.
Did I ever tell you about how when I was
But
a
it's
kid,
observationally. What?
when I was a kid, that I used to hate birthdays and Christmas and stuff?
I still do.
And the reason I didn't like it wasn't that I didn't like receiving gifts or I didn't like holidays. It was that I didn't like the pressure I felt to have
Emote.
to respond to the people giving me stuff.
Yeah.
Because it always felt like I was pressured to show some sort of reaction to it.
Yeah.
And it's not that I didn't like the gift or didn't appreciate it, but I didn't always the natural thing for me wasn't to have a big emotional reaction.
Right.
Like if somebody got me a game, like a video game I wanted, I'd be like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, because that's what I wanted.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to be like, oh my God, thank you. That's not me.
Right.
But then I feel like, now I feel like I'm making other people feel unappreciated. So it's like this weird pressure to over emote and act in a way to show people that I care, even though that's not me and that's not how I react.
And so people should just accept the way you emote your way, but they don't. Yeah.
So
they expect
I'd
you
rather
to
people just
be
not get me.
performative.
I'd rather people just not get me anything than deal with the awkwardness
Oh my
of
God.
having to react to somebody giving me something.
Oh my God. For the last 5 or 6 years, that's how me and Natalie are. Cause I don't care for any of the holiday stuff. I don't care for birthdays, anniversaries, any of that shit. I don't care for any of it. And what I mean by that is it's not that I don't appreciate and love, my wife. And it's not that I don't want to celebrate the fact that we've been together as long as we have, but I don't want a pre-prescribed fucking day to do that. And I don't like holidays. I don't like fucking Christmas. Do I like getting gifts? Sometimes, but half the time I don't care. Like, I don't care if you get me something or not. I don't care if you buy me dinner or not. I don't care if you buy me a coffee or not. It's not going to affect my fucking day. Mostly I say it that way because, like, whether you gave me that gift or not, my day still goes on. And if you didn't give it to me, I wouldn't have known, and my day still goes on. Now, when it comes to Natalie, I buy her stuff throughout the year without being prompted by a specific fucking day. But I also get her stuff when I see something that I know she'll like, and I just get it for her. And sometimes it's as little as a candy bar that is flavored with her favorite flavor. Okay. I've done that many a times, and she appreciates that because that's my way of showing affection to her. That's my way of showing her that I'm thinking of her, that I care about her, and that I know her. I don't need a specific fucking day of an anniversary. I don't need to do it on her birthday. I don't need to do it on Christmas. We actually forget that shit because we're more focused on the kids. And I've told my brother, I've told my mother, I think I've told friends too, and I definitely have told Natalie, don't buy me gifts for my birthday. Don't do shit for my birthday. I don't care. I don't need presents for Christmas. I don't need none of that because it doesn't say to me that you know me and that you're thinking of me because it's a day where you're told you have to do it. And so I don't want you to do it because you have to. I only want you to do it if you think about it and it's not prompted. And if you don't do it,
yeah, but
I ain't gonna miss it.
In opposition to what you're saying,
please.
A lot of times people will do that anyway. So for instance, my mother, she buys Christmas gifts throughout the whole year.
Great.
But she gives them to people on Christmas. But
okay,
she'll start shopping in the spring or the summer, and she'll see something or find something that she thinks I would like or my sister would like. And so she buys it, but she doesn't give it to us until Christmas.
That's great.
But it's doing what you're saying, but she gives it to people on the holiday.
Right. But that's actually out of her choice to do it that way. I just give it to them when I buy it because otherwise I'm going to forget. I will say also, like, when it comes to saying thank you, if you buy something for somebody, and this is my personal opinion on this, and sure, somebody might tell me I'm wrong. I don't care. I don't think I am. If you buy something for somebody or do something for somebody or give somebody something and you expect a thank you in return, you expect gratitude out of somebody, then you didn't buy it for them. You bought it for you. You bought it to have somebody pat you on the goddamn back. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a little upset by this because, like, for you, just like you, when I was younger, I did not show enough appreciation or gratitude to people, and they let me know that I didn't show enough. It is my personal opinion that if you buy something for somebody and you expect, or do something for somebody and you expect a thank you, you didn't do it for them. You did it for you to prove you're a good person. So fuck you and stop being selfish. Do something for somebody because you wanted to do it for them. They don't have to thank you. They don't have to do anything in return. They don't have to be nice back. Fuck all that, dude. Either do something nice for somebody or don't do it fucking at all. Look at me with my all or nothing thinking, my inflexibility, if you will. I just realized I was doing it. But I, like, you know what I mean? Like, when I do shit for you, I don't expect you to say thank you in return. Okay. Every now and again, it's not bad to hear, but that's also the voice in my head saying that somebody should say it. And you don't have to.
But I usually
Nobody has to.
if I do something for Nick, it's usually I'm randomly going to the package store or something after work.
That's true.
And then I'll buy like an IPA or something that I like, and then I'll see some random like I work near Newport, and there's a lot of like little craft breweries and stuff around there.
Newport, Rhode Island.
So there's like a craft brewery in Newport that makes like a coffee beer. There's a coffee roaster.
Mm-hmm.
So the coffee roaster, the local coffee roaster collaborated with the local brewery, and they made a coffee beer together.
Yeah.
So like I picked up a pack of that because he likes coffee beer. I just do stuff like that. Like, hey, I got a 4-pack of some coffee beer. So when you come over, you can try some of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And he'll get it for me every now and again. And I do say thank you to Steve because I don't know Steve's personal opinion about thank yous and shit. I also know that like me and Steve, and I know this is a thing for you too, we are not good at getting compliments from people. And I know a lot of folks are not good with compliments because they're not sure how to react and all that kind of stuff. I know we're not good with compliments. And one of the reasons why I know I am, and I think you've agreed with me in the past about this, one of the reasons why I'm not good with compliments is because I know I did good. Like, you don't need to tell me that. But I do need to know where I can improve. I do need to know if I sucked at something. So when people like throw out the fake kind of compliments, like when we're acting and shit, and somebody throws out a fake oh, you did such a good job tonight. Really? Because I missed half my fucking lines. Huh? I stood there on stage for 5 minutes not saying a goddamn thing. Like, I hate fucking compliments.
I think my problem with compliments is just that I'm skeptical whether they're genuine or not most of the time.
Well, that's partially what I'm saying.
So I'm like, I don't know if you actually feel that way or if you're just saying that because you feel socially obligated to.
Right.
Or that you just want to be nice.
Right.
Because a lot of times people just say nice things because they want to say nice things and not because they actually think that nice thing.
Right.
You say something nice to someone to their face, and then behind their back, you say, oh, well, they were shitty tonight. But you say to their face, oh, good job tonight, but you don't actually know.
Yeah, it's that fake kind of shit.
So that's why I'm very skeptical when people give me compliments or feedback. Like the script that I recently wrote about Elon and Trump, the little musical thing I did, it was kind of a joke. I was very, very critical. I was probably overly critical of my own script because I fucking hated it.
You usually are overly
But I get a bunch of compliments about it. And then like even Katie said, well, people laughed and they enjoyed it. So why are you beating yourself up over it?
Right. Right. I mean, that's kind of how I evaluate most things in life. If I walk away from a social interaction with somebody and they didn't tell me to fuck off, they didn't tell me I was wrong, and they didn't seem angry, I thought that's a win.
I thought my writing was lazy. So I was beating myself up over it because I felt like I should have come up with something more original, more intelligent, more clever. And I felt like a lot of the stuff that I wrote in it was very derivative and not as original as I would have liked it to be. And it was campy, but like, I had like a parody of A Whole New World and stuff in there, which I was like, parody is like an easy way.
Oh, whatever.
Parody is like doing a song parody is a cop-out because it's easy to just take another song and replace the words. Okay, you're taking something that already exists. You have a melody, you have a structure, you have a song, and all you're doing is just changing the words.
You know, Weird Al made an entire career on that.
Yeah, and a lot of his writing's lazy. I still like a lot of his songs, but it's much easier to do that than to write your own songs.
I think to do it at the level he has and still does do it at, I think that takes.
I'm not
just
saying
as much
that he
effort.
has no talent. I'm just saying that it's much easier. It's like a lazy way to do it.
To bring it back to you, okay, and we've talked about this privately, but I guess I'll say it here too when we're talking about executive functioning and shit. I think you don't give yourself enough grace, okay, to write. And I think part of that, like, over criticism that you have, and that never feeling good enough when it comes to writing, you just gotta be okay, my man. Because who are you comparing this to? I mean, you're not Tennessee Williams, but we're not going to know if you're as good as Tennessee Williams until like you're way fucking older. Oh, Tennessee Williams, for those who don't know, was a playwright that a bunch of fuckers like hold up as damn good. Like, are you as good as Shakespeare? Don't know yet. You ain't that old. It's not 400 years later. But like, who are you comparing it to? Because like, I will say this fucking publicly, because I'll say it to any one of their faces too. I think you're a much better writer than all those people that you work with. that you write with. You're a much better writer than them. They're all trying to be smart, and you can just write smart. They're all trying to be clever and unique and fucking have a unique story and shit. But most of the fucking stories they put out are convoluted, are way too layered with complicated shit that doesn't need to fucking be there. And some of them even lose track of their own fucking point in their own fucking story. So like you have a completely fully thought out plot. You focus on your story and the main point of your story, and every choice you make in your writing is based around that idea of serving your story. Like all of the rest of them complicate the shit out of what they're doing, or they double down on bad fucking ideas. And I'm not a fucking expert in writing because I'm not an expert in anything. But I will say that like I do have experience at taking some classes in stage writing. I do have some reading and stage writing and reading from people who are playwrights, and the things that they talk about that are mistakes or common problems or issues when it comes to writing a play. But some of these people, they stick to that shit as if it's good, but they're doing fucking common mistakes that 5 minutes of fucking reading would have had them not do anymore, but none of them bothered to because they're like, I'm a good writer. I've been doing it for years. Yeah, just because you've been doing something for years doesn't make you good at it.
I think that sticking to the story is important, but also the tone. Mm-hmm. So like when I did the Christmas show, I knew that I wanted it to be kind of stupid and ridiculous, campy.
Right.
So I didn't try to force it to be serious.
Right.
I let a lot of the conversations are kind of weird and stupid.
Yeah.
The director criticizing them and going back and forth, and then putting on the show, and then the lines in the play. I didn't even bother to try to copy A Christmas Carol. I just made up my own lines to A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, exactly.
Out of my head. Like I'm just like, this is basically what happens in the story. I don't remember like every single part of A Christmas Carol.
Right.
What does Christmas Carol mean in my head? And I'm like, these things have to happen.
Yeah.
And I just made it up.
Yeah. Why not? Because you got some flexibility.
Well, it wasn't
thinking.
because the point of the story wasn't for me to recreate A Christmas Carol. The point of it was this director putting on a really shitty version of it.
Right.
So whatever this director wants it to be is what it is.
Yeah.
So I wrote the lines as though I was that guy.
Right. Absolutely. You know what? Something that can help with that. Because as you were just saying that, somebody might have said, while listening to you say that, might have said, well, it only took a minute or two. You could have looked it up. You're right, but that wasn't the point of it. So he didn't get bogged down with the details. He didn't get bogged down with the idea that he has to be accurate.
Because that's not what the point of the story was. The
And
point of the story was this local...
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a community theater director trying to put on A Christmas Carol, but they can't afford to get the rights to any of the Broadway versions of it.
Yes.
So that he comes up with an original version of it that's just really bad.
Right.
And then he has a lot of actors who have no experience. Just like typical community theater, you have like some really bad actors. And then there's a really good actor who he doesn't like because the director just doesn't like him for some reason. So it's just, it's comedy.
And my point of bringing that up is to actually try to encourage anybody who listens to our show. If you're an autistic human being, or you know what, fuck if you're autistic. If you're a human being who gets stuck in ideas, okay, and you have kind of a inflexibility in your concepts of things, okay, one way you can actually help yourself and get better at executive functioning, or at least that aspect of it, actually all aspects of it, is go do a play. Whether you are an actor or not, I don't call myself an actor and I do plays. Go do a play. Go do a local community theater play. Okay. Just be a stagehand. Just be a stage manager. Actually act in the play. A lot of the things when it comes to executive functioning, a lot of the deficits that come with executive functioning issues or dysfunction, you can help yourself with by doing a play. And if you think I'm wrong, prove me wrong. Go do a play.
It's also like what the point of it is. So for instance, the Christmas play, to me, it wasn't as important. I was just thinking, going back to what you were saying, it wasn't as important about like trying to prove that I'm smart as a writer or trying to make any big social points. I mean, I did poke fun at like capitalism and stuff in there because I had the Scrooge character. Yeah. Like the character was supposed to be kind of like this left wing director, like pushing a narrative. But what my main concern was writing that script was I wanted it to be more of an audience experience or audience to kind of enjoy it or be like funny, like not take itself seriously, versus like if you're writing a play where you want it to be smart and want people to walk away thinking about it or like trying to make an impression on people. That's not what I was going for. I just want people to have a good time and enjoy themselves. This is going to be silly, fun, funny.
Yeah.
Like, what's your goal with what you're writing?
Right.
If you want it to just be campy and funny and for people to just have a good time versus do you want to make people think or have an emotional impact on them?
Do you want to have a moral point or do you want to just have fun?
Yeah. I mean, you can do both, but can sometimes do both, but it depends. Like with the night swimming one, I was trying to be funny and also make a point.
Right. Which I still think is your best one to date. But that's only because like I had an emotional reaction to it. What was I saying before? Because you got fixated on telling the point of your story, telling the script. Right. Go do a play. And actually from what I looked up for executive functioning, it actually talked about doing theater, doing a play, because it'll help with a bunch of stuff. And one of the things it'll also help with that is more of an intrinsic thing that it'll help with, not an outright kind of external thing to help with, because you're going to learn time management better. You're going to be able to fixate on a script, and you're going to learn how to make decisions a lot better, control your impulsivity a little bit better. All that stuff a play can help you with too. But something I think intrinsically it's going to help you with is you're going to be around a lot more actors, a lot of other people who are going to show you differences in how things work, okay, how they do things, differences in how to approach things, how to manage anxiety, if you will. And also, you're going to be learning about another character. And something that I've noticed from folks I've seen online talking about lived experience folks who are late diagnosed and or just knew all their life, some of the things that I hear them talk about, especially when they're comparing autistic people to neurotypical folk, they don't seem to have an understanding of how a neurotypical actually does things. Instead, they're looking at it through their eyes only and judging them. And so doing a play, you're going to be able to learn a social interaction a little bit differently because the writer of that script wrote the dialogue a certain way based on what they believe was certain norms at the time or how they believe people interacted with each other. So you're going to learn a different way of interacting. And so you might actually learn a little bit better of social cues too.
Yeah.
Because all of us, and I'm going to say this as a definitive statement. I don't like definitives much. Every single autistic person on the fucking planet has social cue issues. Guys, social cue deficits. Straightforward. In this conversation alone with me and Steve, if y'all are paying attention, there's some clues that he didn't pick up on socially and didn't react to. And there's a couple, same with me. Pay attention to them. And those are very super minor examples of missing social cues. I guarantee every single one of you misses social cues, whether it's in big ways or little ways.
I miss social P's.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes you got to mind your P's and Q's.
Yeah. I know. I got it. It just took me a second to get that. Just took me a second.
Well, we need to wrap up soon. So
okay.
We can do another episode on this in the future if we need to.
We're going to have to. We're going to need to
cover a lot. I'm kind of my brain is all over the place today. I'm having a hard time focusing on one thing because as you're talking, I'm thinking about 40 different things right now in my head.
I know. I've got rehearsal later tonight. I've got to direct a fucking rehearsal later tonight. Executive function stuff you're talking about. Hard time focusing.
Actually, since I got up this morning, I've been unable to focus. I'm having trouble verbalizing my thoughts, and my thoughts are all over the place today. So
yeah, I got you.
Like I'm stumbling over my words more than I typically would.
I mean, nobody would probably notice. Maybe they would, but like I'm the same way today. But I'm also trying to fixate because this stuff is highly emotional for me, so I can focus a little bit more on it. It's because people don't give each other and they don't give themselves enough grace and forgiveness about this stuff. Instead, they beat themselves up. I'm not as smart as other people. I can't remember like other people.
Well, you won't have to deal with that much longer because coming out 2026, the patented autism cure will finally be available for you. 3 easy payments of $39.95, and we will mail it to you.
All right.
Nick is once and forever my test subject. We have been
Yes.
making progress with him.
Yep, but I keep regressing.
Yeah.
Damn it.
He sold his train set. That was the first
Okay.
first sign, first symptom.
Yep.
That seemed to go away.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I keep sneaking him behind his back. He doesn't know. He has no idea his closet is full of trains.
Trains?
Trains.
Planes, trains, and automobiles?
I love that movie. Fucking John Candy and Steve Martin. That was a great fucking movie. Anyway, so thank you very much, everybody. If you heard something, if you got this far into the episode, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. As well as give us a comment. Tell us what you agree with, what you disagree with what we said. Tell us how we should focus this, the next version of this episode when we talk about executive function again. Tell us how we should focus on it.
Tell us
that
what your
time.
breath smells like.
Tell us what your breath smells like. Interact with us a little bit, everybody, because you know what? We do need feedback about our own show, as well as we'd like to hear from you more often. So on social
you said
media.
moron.
What?
I'm just kidding.
Oh. On social media, comment, like, share to other people, and tell us what you think about the episode. Please, if you have a TikTok account, make a little video and tell people what you thought about our newest episode. All right, that's all I had to say. Thanks, everybody.
PP.